Today on Data Team Success, brought to you in partnership with Amplitude, we're diving into data management, products and governance. We're going to be unlocking the secrets of a digital treasure map. Just like prospectors during the gold rush, we'll be staking our claim in the data-rich territories of modern business. So stay tuned to learn how data governance is becoming the new gold rush of the digital age in the best way possible. In this episode, you'll meet Chris Mastrodonato, the complexity science who transforms data into organizational gold. His insights have the power to reshape your approach to management and unlock the untapped potential in your data. Coming up in this episode, unlock the secrets to creating successful data teams, explore the future of data as a product for business growth, and data governance, the product worth its weight in gold. Joining us today is Chris, a thought leader in data governance and complexity management, and he's got a great podcast about that. We're going to be delving into the concept of data as a product. But first, I wanted to know about Chris's role as the CTO of a tech school. Chris, what is the focus for learners and the response to that information?
On the student side, I usually run in BTS. I don't have own courses, but run master classes are roughly around complexity management and data. A few other things sometimes, but mainly around data management, data governance, which is another interesting topic, and of course also very much related to your podcast. And I think both of them are. The response has always been very positive. I think when it comes to complexity, it usually gives a different framework of reference, because everybody, and schools in particular, when I say schools is in general, it's from primary to university, they give you this mindset of, if you study enough little details, and if you study enough frameworks, and if you study enough whatever, are you going to master it? And as we were saying earlier, you go out in real life and you find out that most of the stuff that you studied in school wasn't really helpful. Main reason being is that what is more helpful is critical thinking and understanding of risks and understanding how things can happen and how you can react to those. That's more valuable than knowing a lot of tools that you might never really apply because they may be being used 200 years ago. So again, schools tend to have this very much tailorist approach of waterfall planning, breaking up into smaller chunks and doing simple things. But simple things don't exist in reality. In reality, you have complexity. That's the only thing you have. So oftentimes, the tools you have, they don't really answer your needs. And so it's more about understanding the situation and look at that and maybe come up with new tools. So there is definitely a lot on that front of positive reaction on complexity. And that's similar to data management and data governance, because again, what I've seen, even when you go down into data topics, the way they are approached in a very much siloed way. Okay, you look at data from the point of view, you build a database, was it SQL, not SQL, or whatever. And then data science, okay, you have a set of algorithms that you have to know and find out, and from machine learning to K-means or multilinear regression or whatever. And in that sense, I always think that data governance as a practice, besides being helpful in an organization, or suggest any organization to implement one, is also very good for the students to give them an idea of data end to end. But the governance is really about that. And then when people can see what does it mean to govern data across an organization end to end, looking at quality, looking at different aspects of data management, master data and knowledge management, and all these different dimensions that you have with data. And suddenly they say, okay, now I understand all those little bits and pieces that I was studying independently. They are part of a wider strategy that an organization needs to put in place. And when you see from that perspective, one, it's easier to identify gaps. Maybe you're doing something well and you're doing something else not that well. And in general, you understand data as an experience across the organization. And that's super important nowadays, where basically data is the real asset owned by modern companies. So I think both of them had a very positive response. And I think complexity and data management are kind of two sides of the same coin.
Chris, I think that's a fantastic way of putting it. I'd love to also get your detailed thoughts on data team success factors.
I think you have to realize that when you look from a large organization perspective, there is probably, I'm thinking of a few key areas. One is, you touched about startup, but it's related to a previous comment I was making about managing the change. So it doesn't matter how big is the company. You always start from smaller experiments. So in a way, even if you're in a large company, you're going to have one or more startups looking at data. So your data organization is going to be at the beginning a startup inside a large organization. And I've been part of those, let's call them corporate startups, quite a few times. So, and I think the first rule number one is, yes, you need to give the space for experimentation. It's really a success factor. If you start from day one with a fully fledged whatever data program across the company, again, it's very waterfall. You're going to make a super big plan that's never going to land because things are going to change too fast. So having this mindset, again, starting small, lean, and grow over time is going to be fundamental. So that's one factor. The other factor that I touched about is data governance. So, which when people hear data governance, they think, oh my God, yes, yet another process. It's not about process, as I mentioned. It's about having a holistic look on how data is managed across the organization. Because companies, what they usually do is they get excited around data science. Well, everybody now is AI and whatever. And one of the things they usually repeat to students when they start is, historic has always been like that. If a company, good part of the data science projects at the very beginning in startup is cleaning your data. Your organization never managed data before, so most likely the data of your organization is a mess. Sorry, I cannot come up with another better term. And you have to manage that. So sometimes it's very unsexy at the beginning when you start, because you have to unpack a lot around data quality. So again, data governance, it gives you an element of understanding your maturity. Where are you into the data journey? Because there are many dimensions. You can get overly excited about AI, but if the quality of the data you have in the company is poor, I'm sorry, your AI projects are all going to fail. Or to have one succeed, you need to invest a huge amount of money. So again, the data governance lens helps a lot of organizations to start understanding where we are in the journey, that baseline that I was talking about earlier. The third one that I've started exploring more recently, and which I think connects a lot also with a lot of product management best practices, is the evolution towards data mesh and data mesh organization. That also, to me, is becoming more and more a success factor. Reason number one is because it forces you to think data as a product. In fact, the core of data mesh is data products. And if you start looking at data as a product and as an asset that has value, then you definitely start changing the perspective.
Why, Chris, do you think that the mindset towards data governance as a product has not been adopted by everyone yet?
Because historically, the data is considered the thing that is in the database. The product is the front end, is your whatever application you're using. But the reality is that, and that's true for many organizations. Of course, there are organizations that are advanced, they have very developed APIs and so forth. But for most of the organizations, especially the more you move into the B2B and industrial sector, they have a lot of data, but they don't conceive it as a product. It is stuff that stays in the database. And it's purely operational. It's made to manage one application, maybe two, and that's it. If you start thinking that as a product and manage it as a product, then of course the conversation changes. And then again, you can start looking, data mesh, you can start, gives you a tool like bounded context, again, a lot of good success in also on the product side and in product management and supporting sort of product versus technology architecture and so forth. So then you can go down into a lot of other interesting tools. But again, data products and data mesh to me is the third success factor to take into account.
So what have you seen as the best way to get data team and data team leaders to start thinking of data as a product?
There are a few ways. Okay, so one is there are a couple of things. So one is really thinking about what's the value of your data, and that's usually the rule number one, which can go down the route of trying to associate a tag, even a price tag, to the data. Bearing in mind, it's always being arbitrary, but that's fine. Okay, what's important there is not the exact number, is the journey that leads you to get to that number. Because you really start about the value of the data, but also how much that data costs to you to create, build it, and maintain it. And then you can start having this level of conversation. Is this data set really worth it? Or maybe we should just kill it, for example. Versus, should we invest more on that data set? Because actually, we could use it more and more, but at the moment, it's sort of under 500 layers of application and nobody even know we have it. So I think, and interestingly enough, we are running through an exercise like that in ICIS, where I'm now at the moment. And so there is definitely an element there where looking at that helps. The other area, getting into the data mesh, is looking at bounded context. And so again, being able, which again, bounded context is very much related to complexity, very much related. And again, being able to sort of break up your system, in this case, your organization, into smaller bounded contexts that are more manageable. And looking especially at the coupling and wanting to decouple as much as possible this bounded context. Because at that point, again, that helps a lot understanding what's the value and what are the products you can get out of there. While often data is managed as a sort of a big bowl of mud, this big spaghetti bowl probably, and you'd really struggle to unpick where is the value if everything is managed as a single sort of data system without really thinking about the details.
Chris, as we wrap up, I'm wondering if you have any other best practices people could adopt in their data teams to be more successful.
One thing is related to what often, and data mesh helps breaking that, the data team, especially data science team, but data team in general, they are separated from the rest of the organization. So one of the consequences of thinking data as a product also means embedding the data team members into the pipeline and letting them work together, closer to product manager, closer to software developers and so forth. Possibly sometime even in the same school, if you can get to that point, which is sort of the ideal state. So I think there is definitely a best practice there of bringing data science knowledge closer to the product, closer to the actual delivery pipeline. While at the moment, it happened a lot in the past with innovation teams, that there was a little bit like a zoo, separated from the rest, doing cool stuff that nobody really cared. I don't want to say the same with data science, because of course everybody cares, but they tend still to be managed as separated zoos instead of being embedded into the fabric, into the value chain of the organization, from the point of view on how you build the organization. So there is definitely an element there. Then the other thing, talking about AI as a hot topic, everybody's talking about generative AI, and I think it's just to stress that it sometimes is very important to demystify as much as possible what AI is. Okay? Because I've seen a lot of teams I'm doing AI, and then you go look under the hood and they're basically doing multilinear regression. Okay? So it's like, no, guy, that's not AI. Okay, so that's 100 years old statistical methodologies. But when you say that, people get, then we shouldn't be doing it. No, please. If it gives you value, why do you need to build an AI model if a multilinear regression does the job? And I think, so there is a lot about finding the right methods for the problem you have instead of just going behind the hype. And that it's even more valuable, for example, to large language model application, which I start seeing people using them into the most disparate ways, which very unlikely are going to get any value if you have any understanding whatsoever what they're supposed to do. But if you are into a text-rich context, it's definitely are definitely tools that can make the whole natural language processing world advanced at huge speed, at exponential speed. So I think, again, it's very important as a best practice to look at AI as not as a magic word or as a buzzword, but really understanding statistics and data science offers you so many tools. Let's just not get bogged down into buzzwords, and let's try to identify what are the right tools for you.
Just like deciphering a treasure map to unearth hidden riches, you now know how to unlock the potential of your organization. Connect with Chris on LinkedIn to explore more of his expertise. And be sure not to miss our episode with Darren Wood, where we uncovered more groundbreaking strategies to move your data leadership and data team forward. Thanks again to Amplitude for sponsoring and helping us produce this episode. And from me, Ross Webb, and the team at Data Team Success, bye for now.